My brother-in-law, who married my sister, told my wife that he was in love with her. This led to a chain of horrific discoveries in our family. You know, you think you have a handle on life, on your family, on the people you've known for years. You think you can see the lines, understand the connections, predict the weather. Then a hurricane rips through your living room, disguised as a Tuesday afternoon confession, and you realize you haven't just been blind, you've been living in an entirely different reality. It all started, as these things often do, with a quiet conversation, a seemingly out-of-place comment that initially just pricked at the edges of my understanding. My wife, Sarah, came to me looking pale, her usual vibrant energy dimmed to a flickering candle. She said, "We need to talk." Those 4 words, man, they can be the start of a beautiful journey or the first shovel of dirt on a grave. In this case, it felt like both. She told me that Liam, my brother-in-law, the man married to my own sister, Chloe, had cornered her earlier that day. He'd looked her dead in the eyes, his voice trembling, and told her he was in love with her. With Sarah, my wife. The air left my lungs. It was like a punch I didn't see coming, delivered by someone I'd shared countless beers with, someone I'd helped move into his first apartment with Chloe, someone I considered, well, family. My first reaction was a weird mix of disbelief and a white-hot flash of anger. Liam? Quiet, unassuming Liam? The guy who always seemed more interested in his model trains than any actual human drama? It didn't make sense. Sarah was obviously distressed, and I tried to comfort her, telling her he was probably just confused, maybe going through something. But deep down, a sliver of ice had lodged itself in my gut. Sarah, bless her heart, had immediately shut him down, told him it was inappropriate, that she loved me, and that he needed to respect our marriage and his own. I was proud of her, so incredibly proud, but the seed of unease had been planted. The next few days were tense. We decided not to tell Chloe immediately. How do you even begin to drop that kind of bomb on your sister? Hey, Chloe, your husband, the father of your kids, just confessed his undying love for my wife? Yeah, no. We thought maybe, just maybe, Liam would come to his senses, apologize, and we could all somehow pretend this nightmare hadn't happened. We were so naive. The first twist, the one that really started to unravel everything, came about a week later. Chloe called me, hysterical. Liam had packed a bag and left. No note, no explanation beyond a mumbled, "I can't do this anymore." Chloe was devastated, confused, blaming herself. I felt like the world's biggest hypocrite, sitting there comforting her, knowing what I knew, but still, what could I say? Then Sarah started noticing things. Small things at first. Liam's car parked a few streets away from our house. Hang-up calls on her phone. She felt like she was being watched. I tried to brush it off as stress, paranoia, but the unease was growing, coiling around us like a python. The real horror, though, the discoveries that ripped the picturesque facade of our family to shreds, began with an old laptop. Chloe, in her grief and anger, had started clearing out Liam's things. She found an old laptop of his, one he hadn't used in years, tucked away in the attic. She couldn't get into it, but she remembered me being decent with computers. She asked if I could take a look, maybe retrieve some old family photos he'd apparently stored on there. I still remember the click of the hard drive as it booted up. What I found wasn't family photos. It was a hidden folder, password protected, but Liam had always been careless with passwords. His dog's name and his birth year. Click. The folder opened, and my blood ran cold. It was a meticulous archive, years and years of observations. Notes. Photos. Not just of Sarah, though there were hundreds of her, taken from a distance, clearly without her knowledge. Pictures of her at the park, at the grocery store, even a few that looked like they were taken through our window. My stomach churned. This wasn't a sudden infatuation. This was an obsession, a long-standing, deeply unsettling fixation. But it got worse. So much worse. There were also files on Chloe. Notes detailing her routines, her conversations, her private moments. It was chilling, like reading the diary of a stalker, but the stalker was her husband. And then I found the journals. Not Liam's. Or rather, not just Liam's. There were scanned pages of handwritten notes, and the handwriting wasn't his. It was my mother-in-law's. Sarah's and Chloe's mother, Eleanor. A woman we all thought was the gentle, knitting grandma type. The notes were clinical, detached. They detailed Liam's progress, his suitability. They talked about aligning family interests and ensuring stability. It read like some kind of twisted social experiment. Mixed in were emails between Eleanor and Liam's parents, going back years, even before Liam and Chloe were married. They were discussing arrangements, financial incentives. It was like our marriages, our lives, were some kind of business merger. My head was spinning. Liam hadn't just confessed his love for Sarah out of nowhere. This was orchestrated? Encouraged? By whom? And why? Sarah and I confronted Eleanor. She was calm, eerily calm. She didn't deny it. She said she'd always known Liam had a soft spot for Sarah even before he married Chloe. She believed Sarah was a better match for his temperament, his future. Chloe, according to her own mother, was too flighty, too unpredictable. Eleanor had apparently been subtly, or not so subtly, pushing Liam towards Sarah for years, even after he married her other daughter. She saw it as course correction. She actually used those words. Course correction. She thought that by Liam confessing to Sarah, it might open a door. Maybe Sarah would realize she'd made a mistake with me. Maybe Chloe would be freed to find someone more suitable. My sister-in-law, her own daughter, was a pawn in this demented game. Chloe found out, of course. The fallout was catastrophic. Her entire world, her marriage, her relationship with her mother, all shattered. Liam, when we finally tracked him down, holed up in some cheap motel, was a broken man. He confessed everything. How his parents and Eleanor had pressured him for years, subtly at first, then more overtly. How they'd filled his head with ideas about Sarah being his true destiny. He said he fought it for a long time, genuinely loved Chloe in his own way, but the constant manipulation, Eleanor's insidious whispers, they'd worn him down. He'd become convinced. The love he felt for Sarah wasn't love. It was a carefully constructed illusion, a product of years of psychological grooming. The chain of discoveries didn't stop there. We found out about financial entanglements, properties bought and sold under strange circumstances, all pointing back to Eleanor and Liam's parents trying to consolidate some kind of family empire we never even knew existed. It turned out my own family had unknowingly been shielded from some of this by my late father, who, we discovered through old letters, had deeply distrusted Eleanor and her husband. He put safeguards in place, things we never understood until now, that had prevented them from completely pulling us into their financial web. My sister, Chloe, is a wreck, but she's also incredibly strong. She's filed for divorce, cut ties with her mother, and is focusing on her kids. Sarah and I? We're recovering. Our marriage has been tested in ways I never imagined, but weirdly, it's stronger. The horror of it all forced us to cling to each other, to reaffirm what's real. But the normalcy we once knew? That's gone. Every family gathering, every polite smile, every shared memory is now tainted by this sickness that was lurking beneath the surface. We look at old photographs, and we don't see happy family moments anymore. We see a cast of characters in a play we never knew we were a part of, with puppet masters pulling strings in the shadows. Liam is getting therapy. His parents are, predictably, in denial, blaming everyone but themselves. Eleanor. Eleanor is perhaps the most terrifying of all. She still doesn't think she did anything wrong. She genuinely believes she was acting in everyone's best interests. That level of delusion is something I don't think I'll ever comprehend. So, yeah, my brother-in-law told my wife he loved her, and it blew up our entire world. It turns out, the monsters aren't always strangers. Sometimes, they're sitting right next to you at the dinner table, smiling sweetly. We're rebuilding, piece by painful piece, but I don't think we'll ever truly understand the full extent of the lies. The only thing I know for sure is that I'm holding on to Sarah and our truth a little tighter these days, because in a world of carefully constructed realities, it's the only thing that feels solid anymore.